Hello guys, I would like to introduce myself. I am Efren Tolentino and I'm going to evaluate you today about the advocacy of mental health. First of all, what is advocacy first? Advocacy means getting support from another person to help you express your views and wishes and help you stand up for your rights. Someone who helps you in this way is called your advocate. We all know how frustrating it can be when people aren't listening to us. Unfortunately, having a mental health problem can sometimes mean it's even harder to have your opinions and ideas taken seriously by others. This can be very difficult to deal with, especially when you need to communicate often with health and social care professionals. Mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make contribution to his or her community. However, mental illness is a recognized medically diagnosable illness that results in the significant impairment of an individual's cognitive, affective, or relational abilities. People know someone who has experienced a mental health problem. They can happen to all kinds of people from all walks of life, and it's likely that when you find a combination of self-care, treatment, and support that works for you, you will get better. You might find they don't always offer you all the opportunities and choices you would like, or involve you fully in decision about your in many ways. Mental health is just like physical health. Everybody has it and we need to take of it. Half of the population suffers from depression of some stage throughout their life. You deserve to experience how great life can be, and you owe it to the world to be that positive change. An important activity would be to reduce the stigma associated with mental disorders and to encourage individuals to adopt behavior supportive of person with mental disorders and disabilities. People with disabilities and mental disorders are often to find it difficult to make their voice heard when decisions concerning their lives. Discussion like this are important in building an understanding that mental health are affected people from their life. There are different types of mental disorders. First is anxiety disorder. People with anxiety disorder respond to certain objects or situations with fear and dread. Anxiety disorder include generalized anxiety, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, and phobias. Mood disorders involve persistent feelings of sadness or periods feelings overly happy. Most common disorders are depression, bipolar disorders, and cyclotimic disorder. Psychotic disorder involve distorted awareness and thinking. Schizophrenia is an example of psychotic disorder. Eating disorder involve extreme emotion involving weight and food. Anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and eating disorder are most common eating disorder. Advocacy is an important means of raising awareness on our mental health issues and ensuring that mental health is on the national agenda of governments. Advocacy can lead to improvements in policy, legislation, and service development. World Health Organization. These are individuals who tirelessly share their stories in all sorts of ways. They remind us that we're not alone in our struggles and there is real, tangible hope and healing. They shatter stereotypes and myths about mental illness, helping the public see that people with mental illness are just people. However you understand your own experience, and people with mental illness are just people. However you understand your own experience and whatever terms you prefer to use. We hope that you will find the information in the pages useful when considering different options for care and support. As Jennifer Marshall said, by showing the world that we're your neighbor, your family members, your friends, and we are not only surviving with this condition, but thriving, we're educating the world and changing the world for the better. If you're thinking about becoming a mental health advocate, you might be wondering what advocates actually do and how get started. We ask advocates who are doing all kinds of incredible work to share their insights. However, not everyone finds it helpful to think about their mental health this way. Depending on your tradition and beliefs, you might have different ideas about how best to cope. In many cultures, emotional well-being is closely associated with religious or spiritual, and your difficult experience may be just one part of how you understand your identify overall. Therapy is a very touchy subject for many people, and admitting having a mental health issue is a great fear for so many people. It's such a stigma that admitting having a mental health issue is unfortunately labeled as insane or a psycho. Spencer Thomas is a clinical psychologist and one of the founders of United Suicide Survivors International, pulling together a global community of people with life experience, lifting up their voice and leveraging their expertise for suicide prevention and suicide grief support. She also advocates for workplaces to become involved in mental health promotion and suicide prevention, for providers to learn evidence-based clinical practices, and for innovation in mental health through campaigns such as Men Therapy. Gabe Howard, who believes that advocacy must start with open and honest dialogue, primarily does public speaking and hosts two podcasts, the Psych Central Show and a bipolar, schizophrenic, and a podcast. He also testified and in front of legislators, served on boards and advisory council, and volunteered for various initiatives, and it's those exact same labels that are placed on people who require help, refuse to search for it. The proportion of people living with a mental health problem who commit a violent crime is extremely small. There are lots of reasons someone who might commit a violent crime, and factors such as a drug and alcohol misuse are far more likely to be the cause of violent behavior. But many people are still worried about talking about how they're feeling or seeking help because of the fear and stigma of being seen as dangerous. Love has shared his history of recovery from substance abuse all over North Carolina. He works as a counselor at a substance abuse treatment center and with the nonprofit organization the Emerald School of Excellence, which is North Carolina is first recovery high school for teens struggling with substance use. Lauren Kennedy is an advocate who speaks to all kinds of audience, including police officer, high school and college student, and healthcare professionals. She also has a YouTube channel called Living Well and Schizophrenia, where she talks about mental health and her own experience with schizoaffective disorder. We had to make a cost for his because we need to make prevention so we could take and good of our mental health. Your mental health matters. Your struggle matter and most importantly you matter. It's okay if you're not okay. It's okay if all you did today was survive. Take one day at a time. A serious mental illness is important to make a stigma about it because if we don't, I have the gut to prevent our world as toxic and problematic to live in. There will be no hope. We use the first mental health problem as many people have told us his feels helpful for them. But you might be more familiar with terms such as poor emotional health, overloaded, burnt out, or overwhelmed, or may feel that terms such as mental illness or mental health issues describe your experience better or are easier to explain to other people in your life. If certain treatments have helped in the past, tell your doctor, let your friends and family know how they can support you. Whether it's listening to you when you're having a bad day, helping you keep on top of your commitments, or being aware of your triggers, things that set off you difficult feelings of behaviors, or make them worse. It's possible to recover from mental health problems, and many people do, especially after accessing support. Your symptoms may return from time to time, but when you've discovered when self-care techniques and treatments and work best for you, you're more likely to feel confident in managing them. If you're experiencing a more serious mental health problem, it's still possible to find ways to manage your symptoms. For many people, recovery doesn't necessarily mean going back to how life was before, but learning new ways to live your life the way you want and gaining control over areas of your life that might have felt out of control before. However, it's important to remember that recovery is journey and I won't always be straightforward. You might find it more helpful to focus on learning more about yourself and developing ways to cope, rather than trying to get rid of every symptom of mental health problem. What recovery means to you will be personal, but for most people, the most important thing is to find ways to live kind of life you want. It's important to remember that experiencing difficult thoughts, feelings, and behaviors when you're unwell is common, and it's extremely unlikely to mean you may harm another person. Thank you.